Don't you worry, the clip's about to begin, but don't forget to subscribe. Or else, don't make me turn this website around.
All right, we have one last caller. Leki? I believe it is. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly. Is that? Can you correct me, please? Is it Leki? Oh, I did. Okay. What would you like to talk about today, Leki?
Yeah. So I've had this question for a while because I'm a perennialist, which means that like the philosophy behind believing that all religions have had like some sort of truth in like the human experience sort of thing. And there's just one thing about the Bible that I can never, like, I hate the Bible. The fact that it like tells everybody like how they're supposed to live their life and that there's an afterlife. And so I'm just sitting here because like I'm dyslexic, so reading the Bible like really doesn't work. It's like I don't understand.
That must
like,
make the genealogies really difficult.
What was that?
Sorry, that was a bad joke. I said that just must make the genealogies really difficult.
Yeah. So just like for me, it's like how the Bible has affected society in a way that not only does it tell us how to live our life, but it tells us there's an afterlife. And it's just, for me, it's just trying to wrap my head around like how that has affected society and how we approach our lives, you know?
I agree with you. That's why I think it's incredibly damaging because many people. I did a stream about this not that long ago about the people who are. There's this new version of Christian theist apologist that is, the truth and I call them the truth and love ministers that are trying to save the gay people from God torturing them forever by just telling them that they love them so long as they change. And the justification that they use for this position is essentially what you have now is finite. So, if you can't be straight, at least be celibate so that you can get your eternal reward, because that's what's important. You only exist now for a very brief period of time. You'll exist forever once you die. And do you want now to suck or forever to suck? I mean, you're going to vote, you're going to have good forever and bad now, obviously, if you're making that choice. And that is a hugely, massively detrimental approach to have, because you are condemning people and convincing people that they should suffer for the one life that we know for sure we have in order to ensure whatever version you're attempting to sell them of what happens after and forever. And there's so many people who would make different choices if forever wasn't a promise they thought they were going to capitalize on.
If God really loved you and he wanted to spend eternity with you and he didn't want you to be gay, then he wouldn't have made you gay. Like that's yeah, I don't know. I completely agree. Bible, as an instruction, as a peek into ancient Hebrew culture, it is fascinating and very interesting and very useful and valuable. As an instruction manual to live your life by, it is atrocious.
I think we all agree.
Exactly. Yeah. It's because of my philosophy behind religions, like I believe that like every religion was important to every human society that has ever existed. And it kind of just like shows like how culturally they approached life and death and stuff like that. But like to me, because I grew up in a Catholic thing, it's like knowing that people are being punished for who they are, and then being told, well, since you're being punished for who you are now, you have an afterlife that's good. It's like, but we don't even know if we have an afterlife. And it's like, so for me, that just seems so hurtful to existence.
Yeah.
To promise a good afterlife when you are born a certain way that doesn't adhere to a book that we don't even know who wrote, like it's been written over and over again to the point that it just doesn't make sense anymore. So for me, it's just so hurtful to existence.
And it's a promise that the people are undertaking can't fulfill either, nor know if it will be fulfilled.
Yeah, and the Bible says explicitly that you are going to be persecuted and punished in this life for believing in the Bible, but that's okay because you're going to have a better next life. So it explicitly says your life is going to be garbage if you believe the stuff. And that's actually fueling a lot of the persecution complex among Christians in places like the United States, where I think it's like 75% of the population is Christian and 90% of the governmental representation is Christian, but they're being persecuted and the government wants to take away your right to pray in schools, even though the government currently is being run by evangelicals. It's nuts. It does a lot of damage.
Yeah, you're not going to get either of us to disagree, I don't think.
Oh no, I wasn't looking for a disagreement. I don't have people in my life who fully like read the Bible, and then plus Shannon has like, you have the psychology behind it. So then I was like, hey, this might be like a good group of people to like bring this question up to and see how they feel, seeing as Vice Rhino is in the religious part and Shannon you have the psychology behind it. Because I understand, like, I would never, someone's grieving, I would never tell them, oh, well, God isn't real and you can't have a God and stuff like that. Like, I would never do that if that's how they're coping with whatever loss they're dealing with. Like, to me, that just seems, like, unhelpful. But at the same time, like, we're promising a life that we can't promise them, and we're hurting them for existing right now, you know?
Well,
so
actually,
that's just where I am with, like, specific religions.
Like the grieving loved one thing is actually an interesting point because like 90%, well, 90 to 99%, I don't know have the exact number, but like the majority of Christian funerals, they will tell you that the person who died is in a better place. But a lot of times there'll be a Christian funeral for someone who was not really a Christian. They're just like, we're culturally a Christian maybe, but they, like, how do they know that they're in a better place? Like, how do you know that your brand of Christianity was the right one? How do you, like, is like, I brought up the NIFB earlier in this show, but like, they don't think Catholics are going to heaven. And I don't know if the Catholics would agree that non-Catholics are going to, like, can a non-Catholic go to Catholic heaven? I don't even know how that works. Like, how many, do you have to do rosaries first, or I don't know. But like, there are branches of Christianity that don't think other Christians are going to heaven, and yet the preachers for these branches of Christianity, without knowing too much about a deceased person, will often say they are in a better place, they are resting peacefully now, they're with God, something along those lines. And a lot of times, with their own belief, they can't say that for sure. Even if they know that other person is a Christian, they might not be the right kind of Christian.
Yeah. And I think that goes to Leki's point, though, too, is that people wield afterlife belief as though it's some form of comfort. And because it's seen as some sort of comfort, it's afforded this protection from scrutiny, because any attempt at scrutinizing it is perceived as being cruel. It's perceived as taking away somebody's comfort, somebody's coping ability. To say, well, this isn't true, is like hurting them. But by the same token, like, if you flip the script and look at how this belief is directly detrimental because of the things that you're currently sacrificing for the hopes and the promise of it, that you, I would argue, can't capitalize on. But I mean, that's a whole other discussion about neuro.
Or even go back to the earlier call we got. I forget who. I think it was George who was saying that, like, the idea that one of your loved ones is being tortured for all eternity in hell. Like, that was something that hit me as when I was a Christian, because like, my dad has never used the word atheist, but I'm pretty sure he would qualify as being one. He's not religious. He doesn't go to church. And he didn't deny it when I used the label on him, although he did kind of object to me using it publicly. So I'm a bit more careful with that now. But when I was a Christian, I was like, I don't think my dad's a Christian. Is he going to go to like? Am I going to have to spend eternity with my dad burning in hell forever? Like, and that's a harmful thought. Like,
become annihilationist as child deconversions, because like you can no longer comport anymore, right? Because let's say that I'm a Christian and then my son deconverts, like the previous caller. Now I'm in a scenario where there's a huge amount of dissonance that's going to happen if I future project. So I'm in heaven, my son is in hell. Am I happy in heaven? Is there which presents a scenario where you are in heaven, but you cannot conceivably be happy if you retain who you are, or you have to stop caring about what happens to your kid in order to retain your happiness. But once you start actually following through the logic of an afterlife and measure it against the things that actually do make us happy, which are, relationships with people for the most part, it starts to all kind of unravel, even without having to analyze the fact that, what of you would even be retained. Like, do you exist outside of a body? Is it plausible to exist outside of a body? Are our neuro connections what make us? I would argue yes, but like I said, that's a whole other argument. And it brings me back to the protection thing. It drives me absolutely bananas when you say, like, I've had people come at me saying that I was being mean and cruel because I say the afterlife isn't something that's plausible and I don't think that there is a soul. And people think that means that I'm a meanie pants person because I want other people who utilize these things as a security blanket I want to take away their blankie, and that makes me a big meanie head. But
I mean, you are a big meanie head, but that's for other reasons.
People at the same, I am. That's true. But like, if you're saying, yeah, well, this blanket that I have, like, if you want comfort, you have to do this list of things before you can have this blanket. You know what I mean? You don't get to have the comfort that I'm sitting here in, and the only way you do get to have it is if you comport to this pressure that I'm putting upon you. I don't know. I don't like it. Drives me crazy.
You can also extrapolate this out and like, is eternal existence even desirable? Is like,
right?
If Shannon, have you seen the last season of The Good Place?
I don't watch TV really, so
okay,
I've no.
That's fine. So just spoiler alert, I am going to spoil the last season of The Good Place. So the whole premise of this show is that these people have died and they've gone to the good place, and it turns out, like, season 1, the good place is actually the bad place, and they've designed it to look like the good place, but you're not supposed to be there, and that's the torture for you, is that you know that you're not supposed to be there. There was a mistake and you're trying to hide it. And then eventually they find out that, like, it's a point system. It's obviously, it doesn't fit with the Christianity faith, like salvation through faith or whatever, but it's a point system, and if you're good enough, you make it to the good place, but like only one person every couple thousand years actually makes it. And then when they like throughout the whole thing, they end up fixing the afterlife, and the fix they apply to it is that instead of having an eternity of the good place, because that eventually you've done everything that it's even possible to do and it gets boring. So they give you the option of, like, after you are satisfied with what you've done, there's a doorway that you just walk through and you just cease to exist. And so, like, and that's how they fix the afterlife. And I didn't really enjoy the show all the way through, but I enjoyed what they were saying with the show. And like, that's what I've said a lot of times. Like, I would love to just like I don't think 100 years is enough that us humans get, but if I could live like 1,000 years and then just cease to exist, like, in good health, I don't want to be like like having severe arthritis for like 900 of my 1,000 years. But like that's what I think would be ideal. So like, I don't even think an eternal existence is that comforting of a thought if you actually spend any time thinking about it.
Yeah. I'm on board with that. What do you think, Leki? Are we on the right track with you? Are we aligned?
Oh yeah. No, it's really cool to like listen to people that actually know what they're talking about, rather than, because I ask like a bunch of questions and like people are like, I don't know, stop asking questions. It's 10 at night. I want to go to sleep. And so so my favorite thing to say to people to like make them question about, like, well, it's like, what if God the God in heaven, what if that's actually like Satan and God is like pretending to be God or something like that? Or like my nephew like completely independently
Satan
said
is
something like, he's like 8. So my nephew, who's like, he's 8, right? Independently asked, well, if hell is to punish people and Satan like punishes people in hell, like doesn't that make him the good guy? So it's like just all these
Satan
questions of,
totally
like,
is the
things that,
good
like,
guy
don't line up.
in the story. Okay, now you've stumbled into my area, so I could go on for
I
this
know,
for
like
a
the
couple hours
bringer of
now if you
light.
want me to. Not even that.
Yeah.
Like if you just look at the stories as presented, Satan is the good guy. It's like the Garden of Eden. Satan's the only. Well, okay. So first off, it's a serpent. It's not Satan. It's never actually said to be Satan. But the modern interpretation is that was Satan in the garden. The serpent is the only one that tells the truth in the whole story. Like Adam lies, Eve lies,
Yeah.
God lies. Satan tells the truth. And he's giving
So
the like
Lucifer?
he's yeah. Lucifer is the light bringer. Satan just means adversary.
Lightbringer.
It's
Yeah.
I actually read a study by I forget the name of the person who published it, but I remember he worked for a Southern Baptist university. So he had to sign a statement of faith saying that he agrees with all their stuff and whatever. But he published a study saying that like after analyzing the data, you can't find the character of Satan in the Old Testament. And then you get to the New Testament, and that's when he starts showing up. And like again, he strikes me as kind of a figure trying to liberate people. He's like, if you actually believe the story, then Satan knows that God is all powerful and God is going to win in the end. But he's still trying to give us a little bit of freedom from God's ridiculous demands. That's the way it reads to me. So I absolutely agree. Satan is 100% the good guy in the Bible. And I think
honestly,
I think
to me,
there's
like, so like looking at like all the kind of Genesis stories and stuff like that, you have Prometheus and Lucifer both bring light to the humans and whatnot. So you have like, and then you have Zeus is like, oh no, we should keep them innocent and like naive and stuff like that. So it's like just the stuff that like lines up between like Greek mythology and like the Genesis and stuff like that, and like Garden of Eden and all this. It's just, for me, it's like, well, like again, like going back to existence, it's like who is actually fighting for us versus like what we're, existing as.
well, I can't speak to the Zeus story because I'm not overly familiar with it, but I know as far as biblical interpretations go, it actually doesn't really line up too much, because when you do look at the like well into the Middle Ages, it wasn't really considered Satan in the garden with Adam and Eve. It was actually I want to say it was Lilith, Adam's first wife. That is in some apocryphal Jewish writings from the time. She came in the form of a Naga, which was like a serpent woman. And you can actually see this. There are Catholic cathedrals built with the reliefs of Adam and Eve in the garden and whatever. And it's not a serpent; it's a Naga that is tempting them away. So that's one interpretation. But like ultimately, the character of Satan didn't actually become personified until at earliest 100 years before Jesus, 100 years BCE. Yeah. But possibly even into like 1 to 200 CE. Like I've seen arguments made that there isn't even a character of Satan in the Gospels. When you look at the original Greek, it is a lot more ambiguous than our English translations make it.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, we are going to let you go. And I appreciate that. I always love a good conversation about afterlife stuff and souls and all of that stuff. So thank you very much for calling in. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. I did.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for
Have
calling.
a good rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for checking out this clip for The Line. While you're here, hit that like button, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and then share this with that bitter uncle of yours who loves talking about the good old days.